This video is being recorded for the purpose of evaluating my candidacy and not for teaching purpose at EduTap. So our today's topic is electoral reforms in India. As we know, India is a democracy, and a democracy to run smoothly, the most important thing is fair and transparent elections. So Commission of India has introduced many constitutional amendments and many reforms so that the election can become more transparent and more fair. First of all, we have 1950 Representation of People Act. It encompasses major procedures like how the candidacy will be filled, how many seats will be allocated to Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Then in 1966 we have Delimitation Commission. In 1974 Election Commission was made a permanent body. In 1989 Anti-Defection Law. In 1996 none of the above option. In 2003 Electoral Bond Scheme. In 2018 simultaneous election, which nowadays is being known as one nation one election. We will cover all this topic in the further video. So first of all, we have 1950 Representation of People Act. This act defined the process for conducting elections, outlining voter registration, polling procedures, dispute resolution mechanisms. The key provisions in this act were: it laid down the procedure for delimitation of constituencies. That is, if this is a state, then the state was divided into different constituencies, and each constituency must have almost equal population. Then it provided for the allocation of seats in the House of People and in legislative assemblies and legislative council of states. So it gave, like in Lok Sabha there will be 540 seats, there will be this much seats. It lays down the procedure for the preparation of electoral rolls and manner of filling seats. It also laid down the qualification of voters. Like at that time, the age required for voting was 21 years. And then in 1989, with the 61st Amendment, the age was reduced to 18 years. Then in 1974 Election Commission was made a permanent constitutional body. So when a body becomes a permanent constitutional body, what actually happens that it becomes an independent body. Thus the interference that it could have got from political side or from any side were reduced, or you can say were almost eliminated. Thus the election in India are impartial at present. Now, to further strengthen the election commission, deputation to election commission was made in 1989. So under it, the officers and staffs engaged in preparation, revision and correction of electoral rolls were deemed to be on deputation to election commission, which means that during the period of election, all the personnel engaged in conducting the elections were considered to be under the jurisdiction or superintendence of Election Commission of India. So at that time, all those personnel will act according to the Election Commission of India, thus strengthening the power of Election Commission of India and ensuring transparent elections. Then in 1989, a problem was being faced, not in 1989 but during all the major elections. A problem was being faced, that is, if let us consider there is a party and that is B party. Now A party won the election, but its MP defected and went to B party, and now B party has more majority and B party can rule. So this defection was leading to question the credibility of elections. Thus an anti-defection law was required, and 52nd amendment was done in 1989, and this amendment is also known as anti-defection law, and it prevented the prevent the member of parliament and state legislature from switching parties for personal gain. It ensured the political stability by discouraging defection, and at present only if two-third member of a party are are in favor of merger, then only they can go from one party to another. Otherwise, in other cases, it will be considered defection. Then in 1989, Election Commission made provision for EVMs, but the first time use of such EVMs was in 1998, in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Delhi on experimental basis. And if come to general election, the first time the EVM was used in 1999 in Goa. To further, then again there was one more problem that was being faced was bogus voting. That is, one person will vote for five or six peoples by telling his name different or by doing such other procedures. So a photo identity card was introduced in 1993, which was made on the basis of electoral roll throughout the country, thus checking the bogus voting. Then in 2003, electoral bond scheme was introduced. Under this scheme, uh, any person can buy any person can buy electoral bonds via SBI. This scheme provided anonymity to the donor. But then questions were raised on lack of transparency of this scheme, and thus Supreme Court has declared the electoral bond scheme as unconstitutional and violative of the right to information under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. Thus, now at present, the electoral bond scheme has been made unconstitutional, and SBI has been directed to provide the details of donors to Election Commission of India, which will further provide such details on public scrutiny. Then in 2013, we get the none of the above option introduced. So what actually was that there were many people who were dissatisfied with all the candidates, but if you are going to vote, then you have to choose at least one candidate. And to solve this problem, nota was introduced. It is also known as right to express dissatisfaction with all candidates. Nota empowered the voters to register their disapproval of candidate, promoting transparency and encouraging political parties to improve candidate selection. A major question that arises with Nota is what happens if Nota receives highest votes. Let us consider there are 100 votes and 51 votes. Nota gets 51 votes, and then only there are 49 votes left for other candidates. Let us consider uh, that there is a candidate, he gets 23, then B candidate gets 15, and C gets the remaining one. Now in this condition, these 51 votes will be counted but will be considered invalid. The election commission clarified that the vote cast as nota are counted but are considered invalid votes. So now in 49 seats it will be seen who got the majority, and that is A with 23 seats. He okay, not 23, with 25 he can become the winner. Even if nota votes get the maximum number of votes in constituency, the next candidate with the second most number of vote is declared the winner. Therefore, vote made to nota do not change the outcome of election, but it shows the dissatisfaction of people towards the candidates. Now the major topic that has been news over the year, and we all know that UPSC loves those topics that come that are that come simultaneously all over the year. So that is one nation one election. First time it was introduced, the idea came in 2018, and first time it was introduced in 2018. The concept was prevalent in country till 1967. So till 1967, Lok Sabha elections, that is general elections, and state elections were held simultaneously. But due to various reasons like defection, dismissal, and dissolution of government, the system was disrupted. First time the cycle was broken in 1959 when Centre invoked Article 356, that is President's rule, to dismiss the Kerala government. Then in 1969 we again saw, due to defection and counter defection, many political parties fall, and elections were to be held again. Thus the simultaneous election process was almost broken. But still, even today, in states like Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh, and Odisha, simultaneous elections are being held. So Recently, there have been two bills that have been laid down, Constitutional Amendment Bill 129th Constitutional Amendment Bill and Union Territories Law Amendment Bill 2004. So under 129th Constitutional Amendment Bill, a new Article 82 has been inserted, which describes about the procedure for simultaneous election. Election Commission will conduct general election for Lok Sabha and all state legislative assemblies simultaneously. It also prescribes about the terms of the legislative assemblies that will end with full term of Lok Sabha. It also does amendment to Article 83, and it changes certain changes were done in definition of unexpired term, midterm, and general elections. It says when Lok Sabha is dissolved before full term of 5 years. Let us consider that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now Lok Sabha is dissolved in the third year. So the next general election will be held for only the remaining time, and after 5 years again general election will be done. Key provision for Union Territories Law Amendment Bill. So Union Territories Law Amendment Bill was done again to align the duration of UT legislative assemblies with simultaneous election for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Now, what are the benefits with one nation, one election? So, first of all, streamlining governance and reducing policy paralysis. For example, in recent elections, over 24 key development projects were stalled in Ghaziabad, UP, due to Model Code of Conduct restriction. Now, if elections are held on different time for Lok Sabha and for state assemblies, then this Model Code of Conduct will be induced repeatedly, thus more restrictions. So if elections are considered are conducted once every 5 years, then this MCC imposition to once every 5 years will introduce uninterrupted governance. Then significant reduction in electoral cost. Nowadays election costs have increased, escalated to 55,000 crore, which was just 9,000 crore in 1998. And when elections are held at different time, then for Lok Sabha parties will promote, and then for their state assembly parties will again promote, and thus this will enhance the financial burden. So simultaneous election can reduce this financial burden, enhance voter engagement and turnout. So repeated election lead to voter fatigue. Like voters have to vote for Lok Sabha election and then they will again vote for state assembly. But if elections are considered once every 5 years, then voters can show more enthusiasm towards election. Curtailment of electoral malpractices. So if election frequencies is more, then it will provide more opportunity for vote buying, misuse of state resources and deployment of money power. Thus, if the frequency of elections is reduced, it will lead to reduction in such malpractice opportunities and lead to curtailment of electoral malpractices. Optimize utilization of security forces. So each time elections are held, heavy deployment of security forces are done. But if election will be done simultaneously, then once 5 year only the heavy deployment of security forces will be required. Now, what are the challenges associated with one nation, one election? So, first of all, there is a potential threat to federalism. That is, like in Odisha elections in 2019, Lok Sabha election and Odisha Assembly election, as we know, were held simultaneously. So, during Odisha Assembly elections, people voted on campaigns largely focused on national issues like Balakot strike. Thus, Odisha Assembly elections were got less importance, leading to potential threat to federalism. Secondly, logistical and operational challenges. So, conducting simultaneous election requires a huge logistical planning, and it will be a greater operational challenge for implementing this thing. For example, Election Commission has stated that it would require 10,000 crore every 15 years just for procurement and replacement of new EVMs. Now, disruption of democratic accountability. Frequent elections, what actually frequent elections is, let us consider that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. This is a state A. So, let us consider that the general elections were held in first year, and in third year there is state elections. Now If people are unsatisfied with the party of general election, then they can show their dissatisfaction in this state election, thus providing more democratic accountability. But if it simultaneous election will be held, then the democratic accountability will be reduced because people will get chance only after 5 years. Delayed electoral justice and dispute resolution. As we all know, after election there are many election related disputes, and election allows courts to handle staggered elections, allow court to handle cases in phases. But if simultaneous election will be held, then the there will be lot of cases, thus leading to delay in electoral justice. For example, in 2019 elections of 130 election petition, but when simultaneous election will be held, then these petitions number will grow in a geometrical manner, and thus it will result in delayed electoral justice. What were the recommendations of One Nation One Election panel that was chaired by former President Ramnath Kovind? First of all, phase synchronization, that is, align election dates for Lok Sabha and state assemblies, synchronize municipal and panchayat election with these to be conducted in 100 days of state and Lok Sabha elections. Secondly, term adjustment for new assemblies, that is, if newly formed state assemblies may have shortened terms to align with the next general election. Governance and implementation. So there should be a dedicated group that should oversee all this execution of simultaneous election reforms. The most important thing, managing hung houses and no confidence scenario. Let us consider election in case of a hung house. If a hung house or no confidence motion flash session will be held, the newly elected body will serve only until the term of ongoing Lok Sabha or state assembly expires. Let us consider 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and general elections are and state elections were conducted. Now let us consider that the state assembly falls due to no confidence in third year. So the new government will work only for the remaining these 2 years, and then again simultaneous election will be held for state assemblies and for general assembly. Term limitation. For a newly elected Lok Sabha, the term will extend only until the next synchronized general election. Exactly same point that I told. Conclusion. So first of all, we have India has undergone significant electoral reforms since independence, with the amendment focusing on electoral process, strengthening democratic institutions. As we see, even voter inclusivity is one of the major factors that introduce many reforms. And still we are facing many challenges like malpractices during elections. Still there is a lack of transparency in funding. But we all know that India is a India is the largest democracy, and the elections are and in India the elections are much smoother than many countries that rank above in the democratic indexes. So this shows how much our electoral reforms has resulted in providing India with transparent and fair elections.